All right, good morning, everybody. Well, we're gonna get into week six or session six. Today, Blanche asked me about the living trust, right? And she's not the only one who had these questions, right? So when someone passes, right, one of the first things that we need to establish is ownership, right? Now, if it's husband and wife and both have passed, right, you got to look at the living trust. But if only one of the spouses died, right, you may not need to go to the living trust. It depends on who owns the property. Is it them as individuals or is it the living trust? If the living trust, if you got to pull the preliminary title report, right? You got to look at what document was recorded last, okay? And again, depending on how ownership is, okay, like if it's a husband and wife, is it community property or community property with right of survivorship, right? Which acts like a joint tenancy type of deal, right? Because if you only hold it as community property and most people have not updated their title, okay? Because if let's say, husband and wife owns it as community property, one spouse dies, what happens to that 50%? Well, that can be willed to to a girlfriend or a boyfriend of that spouse. And the remaining, the surviving spouse could be like, hey, what happened to that 50%? How come I didn't get it? Well, guess what? Community property means we own it 50-50, equally. That's all it means. Okay. So if you and your spouse, right, like each other now, you may want to do a community property with right of survivorship. If you want that half to go to you directly, okay. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have a title company do a class, but you may want to review on how to hold title, okay, and look at what are the rights of each party. So in this case with Blanche, if the property is owned by living trust, right, we need to see a copy of that living trust, okay? Because we need to number one establish ownership, and then of course, what does the trust say as far as what to do with that property? And again, real estate is just part of what the trust may be controlling. Okay, remember, a living trust just gives instructions post death, right? Okay, now a living trust, there's different types of trusts. Okay. But more specifically, we're going to talk about, husband and wife's living trust. Okay. If both passes, what happens next? That's why we need to see the original of that living trust. Now, they can email you to you, but escrow is going to need the original. Okay. Because they want to make sure that there is no funny business going on, right? Because they're going to be insuring the property, right? So if there's fraud that happens, right? The buyer buys it and there's fraud, guess what? The buyer has to go through the title insurance policy to get paid or to become whole, right? So that's why the title company, the escrow company needs to verify who is the ownership. As an agent, right? Our job is to start that verification process by asking who are we talking to? Because how many of you guys have actually asked for someone's ID? How do I know Blanche is actually Blanche, not Blanche, the granddaughter trying to sell the property, right? We've had that. We've had grandkids try to sell the grandparents' property because they had the same name. No one checked for the junior, first, and second, things like that. Okay. It has happened, okay, in our office where fraud has happened. And again, with technology these days, there's a lot more fraud that can actually happen. So let's go back to this case of living trust, right? Now, the parents both passed, let's say. Now the kids, three kids own the property, or technically they're supposed to get proceeds from the property, right? Now there could be, that language in there that says, hey, whoever wants to live in it can live in it in perpetuity. You don't even have to buy out your kid, the other two. There could be language like that. Okay. So if let's say one of the kids is the caretaker of the parents, right? So there might be some reward there for them. Hey, so there could be some provision in the living trust that says, hey, since you took care of us, right? Or whoever's going to take care of us can live in the property until someday they want to sell it. And when at that time, the money will be spread out. That could be language like that. There could be some language where, hey, you can live in there until you die, and the trust will be paying for the property taxes and the mortgage, if there's any mortgage, right? So that's where it's really important that we see that living trust paperwork. Until we see that living trust paperwork, we can't really say, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Because one of the kids want to buy it. If one of the kids want to buy it or buy out the other two, they have to come up with the money, right? And that's where we need to treat it like a regular transaction. Now, we can be involved in that process because number one, the bank is going to want a purchase agreement, right? And number two, there might be some disclosures that, again, to make it a legitimate, right, an actual transaction, so no one, gets sued in the future, right? So as agents, we can be involved just like a regular agency, right? We may not need to put it on the MLS because they work out the purchase price. Now, how do they determine purchase price? Well, that's to be determined. There could be, again, special provision that's already put in there, right? Or one sibling want to buy it at fair market value. In that case, sometimes it's just a simple CMA that may go back in time, or you may need to get an appraisal report that goes backwards. So price is to be determined, right? So all these things, right, needs to happen. Again, if there's no miscommunication or if there's no arguments, then it could be a simple process. All right. For this case, with Blanche, I asked her get a copy of the prelim, get a copy of the trust, right, and then have a conversation with everybody and say what are their expectations, right? And then of course, if no one can afford to buy it, and this has happened most of the time, this is what happens. None of the kids want it because they had their own lives. They just want the cash, right? So that's where they need us as agents to sell it. Okay. And this is where the living trust can help avoid probate, right? Because remember, the living trust only has certain assets in there, right? So we need to find out, what else other assets needs to be disseminated. So in a living trust, there's usually a trustee or an administrator. Okay. So that's where you need to figure that out. And that's where that living trust comes in. Now, here's the thing. In that living trust, do we need 3 people to agree? Or do we just need one of the siblings in this case? Or there's one trustee, one administrator that's in control? We don't know. And sometimes there's lawsuits because maybe the administrator is doing something that the other 2 may not like. So there could be some control issues too. Okay, because a living trust can be challenged, just like a will can be challenged. The only question is it legitimate or not? Is there abuse or not? Okay, so in this case, it's very simple, right? We need to establish ownership and the succession as far as what to do with that property. Okay, question?
So I already know that the one I'm talking to is the successor trustee, but they do have a lawyer involved.
Right.
Who's an estate lawyer. So he's because of his bankruptcy, they advised him to let the next, older one, or the younger one, be the successor trustee.
Correct.
So they're going to have that notarized this week. So those are the next steps. And then they agreed that if his name is Maynard, so if he can afford to purchase the property, then that's when I ordered the what we call this retrospective appraisal. So if he could afford it.
Okay. So right now there's argument on price then.
There's really,
right? Because they need to determine value, right? It's not like, we're happy with this, right? We don't have to go backwards.
Yeah.
Right? Because remember, if you go backwards, right, the value may be higher or lower, right? In this case, it's probably going to be lower, right? Because it's, market has gone up, right? But we don't know, right? So now the question is, does this other siblings want to go to that price or to today's price? Because remember, if the price today is higher, that's good for him because, maybe he can qualify better. But that means his payments are going to be higher. So again, that's where it needs to be determined. It's not about the price is set however they want to set it.
Okay. So
right?
I just need to know, like,
Then you
Because it was just 2 months ago when the mom passed.
Okay. Yes. So again, it it doesn't matter, um, what an appraisal will do, right? It's a question is everybody in agreement how to determine price? Okay. It's just like a divorce case, right? Whose price is it gonna be, right? Value is in the eyes of the beholder, so to speak. So in this case, they're asking for an appraisal to go backwards, a historical appraisal. You can do it, but what purposes will that do, right? Because what do the other siblings want to set the price today? Is it today or 2 months ago, 3 months ago, or a year ago, right? That's to be determined.
They actually don't know the process. That's why they
Yeah.
contacted me. So usually I would go back, but it's just 2 months ago. So
Yeah. So again, treat it like a regular transaction.
Okay.
So here's the thing, right? So you got 3 siblings. Well, how much do they want? And then is the surviving, the one who wants it, is he willing to pay that price? He may or may not to, right?
He can afford that.
So again, sometimes it's not a matter of affording it. Now, do the other two want to help him buy it, like co-signing, right? So again, these are the type of things. Sometimes we try. We think it's more complicated. It's as simple as, hey, someone wants to buy, someone wants to sell. Now you just got to put that puzzle together. As agents, the main thing we need to establish is ownership. That's where the prelim comes in. That's where the living trust paperwork comes in, because those will give us instructions and the steps, right? So if you guys have any, whenever someone says, hey, someone passed away, you need to figure out, ownership, right? And then, of course, the instructions. Do you have a living trust? Is it a will, or is it going to probate? Right? Even though there's a living trust, okay, you may still end up going to probate court, but not the whole probate per se. Okay, meaning the living trust, it still has, because there's other assets, it still needs to go to probate court for formal approval, but not to where the court is the one that determines, you know, um, who they're going to sell it to or for how much, right? So when they say probate, sometimes people confuse, like the when someone dies without a will, that probate. Okay, that's one type. There's the type of probate where there's a will. There's a type of probate where there's a living trust. Okay, they will all go through the probate process, probate court. It's just how long will it take? All right, everybody. Okay, so YouTube is a great starting point, right? There's probate in California or dying with a living trust in California. You just put that on YouTube. There's some attorneys that have good materials in there, right? But check back with me. But bottom line is, it's a simple process. So with Blanche, like I said, get a prelim, get the living trust, and figure out how much do the kids want to sell it to that one sibling. And then if he wants to buy it, just like any buyer, you need to figure out, can they qualify? And if you can't qualify, well, maybe they need to just liquidate and then spread out the money and then help them buy later on. Right? Now, there's benefits for one of the kids to buy it because they can have a lower tax, assessment because of Prop 13, or in this case, Prop 19, right? Because the parent to child transfer, as long as it was owner occupied, and then now one of the kids is moving in, they can get, you know, that low Prop 19 exclusion, right? So questions. And this opens to anyway. Everybody question about living trust. Anything else?
So I guess I have to be in communication with the lawyer too, because I don't really know if it's going to go to probate.
Yeah. Well, yes, you need to be in contact with the lawyer, but definitely we just need to review the living trust. Like who's the successor trustee or what happens. Right? So
very simple. I read it. It's just like divide between them.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Again, is there any provision for if one of the kids want to buy it? Do they get a special discount or things like that? Right. But if it's a simple, hey, when we die, liquidate. That is the normal thing for a living trust, right? There's no extra provision for anything else. So treat it just like a regular deal. Okay. So anybody have any questions about living trust? Blanche, anything?
I have one question, Greg.
Okay.
So
Place.
Yes. So to rehash on the trust, if it goes directly to the executive or the, let's say, from the parent to the child,
Uh-huh.
that also goes into probate, but not the full probate, or it just
Correct.
simply gets
Yes.
transferred. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, when I say, it goes to probate, you still need to have the court approve it, right? Or,
Yeah.
it's just basically it's a simple signature from the court, right? Basically, because when someone dies, right,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things you have to do because there's creditors out there. So again, you still have to go to that. The lawyer still has to do certain things, but the decision process is taken out of the court system,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They follow the will, or in this case, the living trust.
Yeah.
So what the kids would have to do is get um, approval from the court to sell it on their own, right? So to become an administrator of that trust. That's where they need to do that now. Okay, so they can make that decision. See, the one that takes the longest is when there's no will and there's no living trust.
Yep.
And the court has to make that decision. That's where it takes 3 to 6 months, to sell a house in that long process. Okay, in this case, it should take 2 to 3, 4 weeks additional time. But you can remove that time by getting that administrator, taking that property out of the probate, right? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's where that the lawyer had. That's why even though there's living trust, you still need to have a lawyer process the probate. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so again, when someone dies, you don't. There's still a probate court or probate process that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The only question is, what happens to the ownership? That's what we need to establish, right? Okay. So,
Mm-hmm.
right. So, good enough place, right? So again, get a prelim,
Yes.
get a copy of that living trust. That's the first steps, right? And once you have that, what do you guys want to do with the property? Does any of the surviving, beneficiaries, right, want to buy it? Because that will change things up. Otherwise, it's just a regular deal. And that's what, but again, we need to make sure that we're in touch with their lawyer, their probate lawyer, right? Okay, to start certain things. Okay. Having a living trust doesn't like eliminate probate. Okay. Right. Um, if the living trust says, "Hey, you're our only son, you get the house," there's still some probate process that needs to happen because there's other creditors that may want some to get paid. Okay, right? If let's say if there's a reverse mortgage, if there's a solar lease that needs to get paid, those are all things that needs to go through the probate. Okay, so just because someone has a living trust does not mean you avoid probate. It's just faster. Okay, everybody? Okay, right? Okay. Are we clear about probate? Everybody?
Yeah. Perfect
Yep.
sense.
Okay. Probate is just a way to liquidate the asset and also make sure all the creditors are paid. Because when someone dies, right, then you have to tell everybody, hey, someone died, if you have any claim to this estate, send it in. Because they typically have, I believe it's 90 days to make claims from someone that dies. Okay. Right? Okay. So
Greg, I
questions?
have a quick question. Um,
Yes.
so do you need to have a will if you have a living trust?
There's usually a will in that living trust, right? Okay. So you don't have to have a separate will, okay? But some
Mm-hmm.
people have both, right? Because they have other assets, or they just started with a will and then they formalize it with a living trust, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, a living trust is just it's more inclusive because you can put a lot of stuff in there. Because most people do a will simple, right? You can have a will on a piece of paper, right? So someone witnesses it, you're fine, right? So will is a simple living trust. A living trust is something you can typically change as you move forward. right? As you acquire other properties, you can put things back in and out. Okay, so good question. So at the very least, you guys should have a will, right? Most people don't have a will or don't want to spend the money for a living trust. So that's why we have the full probate process. All right. Okay. And if you're married, remember I told you, check your if you bought a property before 2005 or 4, you probably have husband and wife as community property, right? You don't have the right of survivorship verbiage, right? Okay, we just did this is years back, right? Yeah, my wife forgot. It's like, hey, why did we do that, right? All right. Well, the reason is so that when one of us passes, or when I die before you, I tell, right, the house goes directly to you. There's no, probate that can happen. Now, when she passes, that's where the living trust kicks in, the will kicks in. Okay, does it make sense, everybody? Right? The the right of survivorship, just like with joint tenants, if you're not related, if you're not married, right? It works the same as community property right of survivorship. It automatically goes to the surviving spouse. So now, if I pass, she can just go to the county and record it just as her own property, 100%. Right? All she has to do is, show um, the death certificate, and it's simple. Right? She files the death certificate, that all might get transferred to her. Okay, so make sense, everybody? Right? Because you can have the death certificate recorded as proof. Because once something is recorded, right, it's permanent, right? It's permanent. It's a permanent notice to everybody. Okay? So, any more questions on that? Blanche, are you clear?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, don't complicate it more. Just treat it just like a regular seller, right? What we have to just figure out is how are we going to transfer title to the next people. In this case, should be pretty simple. Once you establish ownership, and if none of the kids can buy it, then hey, you just have to list it. And then you treat it just normal, but you need to have that attorney involved, their attorney, to start that probate process, to get the property out of probate, right? By showing the court, hey, we have this living trust. This is the instrument. Blanche is going to be the successor trustee, right? Or whoever that may be, right? Okay. So, right, because you need to have that trustee, right? That's why living trust. That's why it's trust. Now, once the court says, hey, Nancy is the next successor trustee, then guess what? Then she becomes an administrator of the trust. That makes sense, everybody, right? So as trustee, you have certain things you can do, but in order for you to liquidate, you need to become the administrator of that trust, so you can now split the money. All right? Okay. So go to YouTube, everybody. Not Chat GPT, okay? All right. All right. Anything else? So just take a look at that and see what it says. Okay. All right. So let's go back. Anybody else have questions about living trust? Probate. Remember, who holds the most real estate in our country? It's baby boomers. I've been going to a lot of funerals recently, right? So a lot of these baby boomers are starting to pass away. And guess what? The kids don't want the property, they just want to liquidate. So there's going to be a lot of listings from people passing away. Right? It's just normal. Okay. And there are some people, I've met a couple now, where they just want to liquidate. They don't want to wait to die to get their money. They're willing to pay the taxes, right? The capital gain tax. So remember how we calculate capital gain taxes, guys, right? Right. What we sell it for minus expenses minus what we bought equals capital gain, right? And once we know the gain, now we need to know, do they qualify for the $250,000, $500,000 exclusion? And if they do, great. But there's a lot of people who have like $3 million worth of capital gains, right? Imagine, and this happened to me, a client that had a house in Atherton. They bought it for about $25,000 40, 50 years ago. Kids inherited it, 5 million. Two kids says, hey, any of you guys want to buy off the other one? Pay 2.5 million to the other party. Both of them says, nope, we have our own lives. Let's cash out. So we sold it for $5 million, right? Now, if they moved in, one of the kids moved in, they would have gotten the lower property taxes, right? Based on Prop 19, right? And that was only like, I think their taxes were about 2,500 a year. The new buyer at 5 million times 1.25, guess what? Their taxes is about 60,000, right? Okay. Do you guys hear about that property they just sold in Hillsborough for $17 million, right? Right. Guess what their tax bill is? 1.25% of 70 million, right? Per year. Do the math, right? So again, Prop 19 is a good tool, but there are certain limitations. So make sure you understand how Prop 19 works. Okay. All right. So let's talk about prospecting, right? So I asked some of you guys before, are you prospecting enough? Right? What is your daily schedule? Right? Because that to me is the most important thing you have is your daily schedule. Right? Where do you have those 5 hours? Skill building, right? Learning about probates. Where's that time? Where's your education, right? Second is market research, right? How well do you know the market? To where when you tell someone this is the market, I've done the research, I see 5 properties, I see 25 houses a week, right? You got to know your inventory because when the seller or buyer knows more than you, right? Then guess what? Our credibility goes down because how can we talk intelligently about the market if we don't have the stats to back it up or at least the knowledge to back it up, right? As a buyer, most buyers see more houses than agents, right? They're getting alerts, they're searching the internet, right? They're going to open houses. As an agent, you need to know your market better than they do, right? As a seller, you definitely should know the market more than them because they only sell every 5, 10, 15 years, right? So again, the question is how well do you know the market? Better than the public? Hopefully not, right? Okay. Because why does a buyer need an agent? Not to find a house, it's to number one, negotiate a better value. Number two, to get the offer accepted, right? And that's where negotiating skills comes in. So to me, the value of a buyer agent is in the negotiating skills and it's the acquiring of the property at a price that's acceptable to the buyer. Okay. And secondly, is to guide them through the whole process. That's the value of a buyer agent. Okay. So in my presentation, that's where I focused my value is in the negotiating and the acquisition of the property. That's the negotiating skills. And of course, is guiding them through the process. Because today they may not be ready. It's how can I get them ready for the future? That's the steps. As a seller, why does a seller need to hire me? Well, because I know the market better than anyone else. I know the value, I know the trends, and I know how to negotiate. My number one skill is negotiating, right? That's how, that's why people hire me. So in my presentation, that's always the key is how I negotiate for their benefit. Because negotiating for a house, Mr. Seller, is not just getting the highest price. It's getting the buyer, qualifying them properly so they will close escrow on time. Okay? That's what you want. A buyer that will close. Because sometimes someone who's willing to pay the highest price may not stick around. They may not even put the deposit. So I need to do my job to qualify the buyer and buyer agent before we even accept the offer. Okay. So again, that languaging, right? That script, you need to add that to your presentations because that's what they're paying us for. Right? Anyone can put up a sign. Anyone can do an open house, put it on the MLS, right? Do drone. I mean, they can do all that themselves. That's why if you challenge yourself, why a for sale by owners or for sale by owner seller, why would they hire you? Because if they can do everything you do, the question is how well do you negotiate? How well do you know the market? And you know, are you skillful enough to make sure you can find a buyer that will actually close escrow? Okay. So, so let's go back to your daily schedule. What is your daily schedule? Right? When is your 3 hour prospecting there? Where is your 1 hour skill building? And where is your 1 hour market research time? Okay. Now, the number one thing I always hear is like, oh, Greg, I got too busy. I don't have enough time, right? I have the same excuse sometimes, right? But here's the thing. Sometimes we have to lose sleep, right? So are you losing sleep because you're too busy, or are you losing sleep because you're stressed about, you don't have enough deals, right? There's different types of losing sleep. But here's the thing. When can you write that offer? And it goes back to my question of, are you doing what's important right now, or are you doing what's urgent, right? Going to a class may be important. Because you didn't go to class, now whatever you should have learned becomes urgent. So this is where, when people ask me, is real estate, you got to be full-time? To me, it is a full-time job. As long as you're doing the other things, throughout the day, to treat it like a full-time job. See, in real estate, unfortunately, you don't learn everything before you get licensed, right? It's always on the job training, right? So we learn as we go, right? So like living trust. Today you may not have a client. So start learning about it. Because when you door knock and you find someone, right, as part of your fair trade item, right? Curious about the living trust, ask me for a free brochure about living trust. Do you have a living trust brochure? Ask your title company, right? Or you can probably, we have something in the marketing department, something that has it, right? At least an introductory to it. Attend a workshop, a webinar, right? Check out, YouTube. You need to get your education down now before you meet a real client, right? Like 1031 exchanges. Be a master at that now before you meet an investor, right? Okay. So that way, when they have questions, you can talk intelligently about it, about the subject matter, right? Okay. Remember I told you guys, who should you be calling, right? Start with for sale by owners and expireds, if you have that courage, right? Second is your hot leads, right? These are people that you're paying attention, they're ready to buy in the next 30, 60, 90 days, right? But again, how many of those do you really have? Third is your COIs, okay? So let's focus on your COIs. These are people you know that know you, right? I'm still challenged, with sometimes, hey, what do I call them about, right? Remember the Ford concept, okay? Talk about their friends and family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So when I'm calling people and I don't know what to talk about, I just go back to Ford, right? All I really do is just catch up with them. Hey, what's been going on? What have they been doing this summer, right? Remember, are you sending them a monthly mailer? Are you calling them? Have you been calling them quarterly, if not more often? You know, are you doing anything social media? Are you liking some of their things they're posting, or are you somehow following some of them? You don't have to do all that, but it's best to be doing something like that. Do you know people's birthdays so you can reach out to them? Not necessarily on their birthday. It could be before or after their birthdays. Okay, guys. Okay, before or after a certain anniversary, house anniversary or wedding anniversary, any type of anniversaries, right? So I mentioned to you guys before, I'm going to a lot of weddings and more specifically, more funerals right now, right? And almost every other week. I don't know why, okay, but that's happening. People are dying old age or they're just passing away, right? Like one of my cousins, he's like a year younger than me. You found him in the bathroom. I mean, that happens, right? So I don't know if it's a joke. My wife said, last week, Greg, your tummy's getting bigger. So she said, Deborah, either you lose 25 pounds by the end of the year or I'm divorcing you. All right. So today, or last week, I weighed myself, right? Okay, here's the proof, right? So 25 pounds before the end of the year, Deborah, right? Or, anybody else, right? So I was like, wow, is she serious or not, right? But hey, I need to get healthy too, right? Because I told you guys before, right? My doctor doubled my high blood pressure medication, right? Because she's been telling me, hey, you need to lose weight, you need to reduce stress and all that stuff, right? Whatever challenges we have, right? We have to, um, figure if that's important enough, right? But that's just one challenge, right? Is the weight. Because, being healthy, I talk about that, right? Our health is our wealth, right? Okay. Again, what else do we have? In this case, Our focus is about is business generation, right? So have you guys read the report from Mike Ferry called you can do 100 deals? I'm going to forward that again. But it's called you can do 100 deals, right? You hopefully you guys read the one that says every way to get a listing, right? Bottom line is here, guys. Are we talking to enough people every day? And if your excuse or the reason you didn't call them today is because you got too busy, it's because you didn't put priority on who to call that day, right? Because if I ask you, did you call them? Did you call these people? I don't always call everybody when I'm supposed to. Sometimes it rolled over to the next day, right? Or a week later. But at least I have something to remind me to call them. Here's the thing though. Because most of these people, most of my COIs, right, are getting a monthly mailer. Like I'm gonna see a lot of people, next week on the viewing and on the actual funeral. They're gonna ask me, but hey, how's the Mario? How's real estate? It's because they know I'm still in real estate. It's through my mailers and through my other activities, right? Okay. This past week, we went to an event, and yeah, people ask me, "Hey, so how's real estate?" Right? It's a normal thing because they know we're still in a real estate. We're still active in real estate. Okay, that's why to me, you need to have that monthly mailing system. Get to that newsletter, guys, or at least you got to make sure that you are top of their mind, or you own the real estate brain, the real estate part of their brain. So when they think real estate, they're thinking Larry, they're thinking Blaze, right? That's what you want. Because if they think real estate and they call somebody else, then we didn't do enough marketing to them. They didn't see the value in us, right? Okay. Remember I told you, I have some cousins that I know that probably will not use me for whatever reason, right? Guess what? When we went to one of our cousins' wedding, last week, guess what? They came up to me, hey, Greg, how's the real estate market? Now, they bought a house through somebody else. That's okay. I don't, but I need to figure out now, hey, how can I convert them? Or, it's just, I know they, for whatever reason, they don't want to work with me. Totally fine. My job is to try and convert them, right? So they're still getting my newsletter. So at least if I go to a family party, they'll ask me, hey, real estate. And guess what? My other cousins, other relatives may hear that. And guess what? I'm marketing to them too. So I have a better opportunity to convert people. And this goes with friends, COIs, our farm, right? The more people we talk to, the more marketing we do, the more potential deals we'll have, right? Okay. If you don't have enough people calling you or reaching out to you now, it's because we haven't reached out to enough people yet. Because the more people we reach out to, the more they'll come back. Does that make sense, everybody? Yeah, hopefully that's starting to make sense, right? The more people we reach out to, we market to them, the more potential deals, right? Like this potential deal that Blanche has. How did they know to reach out to Blanche?
Yep.
Family friend.
Family friend, right? How are you keeping in touch with them?
Actually, the classmate of my husband. So yeah, during a funeral.
During a funeral, right? How did they know you're in real estate?
My husband mentions.
Okay, so your husband's prospecting for you, yes. Right? So imagine if Blanche was mailing out to these clients already, right? Right? Imagine that, right? Remember, they know her, right? Remember, you want to try to get everybody into a mailing system better than a farm, because when you see them or when they think about real estate, you want them to think about you. So this is where I want you, Blanche now is going to have to, jump on our, some sort of, because she farms, right? Now you need to people farm, guys, better. You need to people farm better because we know enough people, right? That we don't need to do a regular geographic farm. But the reason why we have a geographic farm is for future listings. Okay. Blanche is a good farmer for her farm, right? Her geographic farm. Now I want her to improve her people farm because she knows a lot of people. Remember I told you guys, if you have kids, you need to know their friends' parents, right? That's how you grow it. Okay. Right now, I'm with the grandkids and trying to get the parents, right, friends. So when I have to pick them up at school, right, because I do that once a week, I ask them, so which one's your kid, right? Oh, are you the dad? No, they know that my grandkids call me Papa, so they think I'm the father. No, I said no. This is actually my grandson, my granddaughter. Oh, which one's yours, right? You exchange, right? They see interior real estate usually on my being, right? Either a shirt or my name badge. Not every single time, but at least every so often. And then we'll say hello, and eventually I'll say, "Hey, great. By the way, you guys live in the area, right?" Again, I'm not trying to attack them, at the first meeting. That's the key. You just get to know people, right? Yeah. Um, so when you go to Starbucks, do you always give your business card?
No.
Do you always tell people you're in real estate?
Yes.
Right? If not, why not? Right? You need to be marketing yourself. What's the harm of giving a business card? What's the harm of says, hey, if of wearing a name badge, right? Or Blaze, with his Intero shirt, right? Mr. Intero now, right? I mean,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
The more you do it, guys, the more likely you may get potential business, right?
It's
Okay,
happening.
right? I teach Larry about his Facebook purchase, right? Marketplace, right? Hey, how many of you guys see garage sales, right? Estate sales signs, right? Do you ever stop and see what's going on? I've gotten at least two listings from estate sales, right? I mean, that's not a lot, right? But it's better than zero. You stop by and see what's going on, right? Hey, I know you guys doing a sale, is there anything I can help you with, right? Now, I'm not going to say, did someone die? I'm not going to say that. Is there anything I can help you guys with, right? Oh, what do you mean usually, right? They'll ask me, what do you mean? I said, well, sometimes, I have clients that need help, liquidating assets. Are you guys using an estate liquidator? Or by the way, did someone happen to pass away or, right? I didn't say someone died, right? Again, that's not my first thing. It's through that conversation. And by the way, do you know if they had a living trust, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, if I have time, if I have the title app on my phone, guys, you can find out who the owner is, right? Of every property before walking out of your car. You have the address, you can find out who the owner is, right? And now you can talk more intelligently about the history, right? Okay. So get your title app so you can pull up, who owns the property. And in some, at First Am, you can actually get the actual document for free because on the MLS you have to pay. Okay. So again, that's just an opportunity, right? When you see potential signs, you never know. See, what we're trying to do is find reasons to talk to people, right? To open up a conversation. That's all we're doing. And maybe that conversation will lead to a real estate conversation. Hey, by the way, what do you do? Oh, you ask them about how's their day, right? And if you have your name badge or Intero shirt, you rarely will have to say, hey, by the way, I'm in real estate, right? Usually they say, oh, you're with Intero. Oh, it says real estate services. Oh, you're a realtor, right? Unless their brain is not like they're too young to think about real estate. When they see you, when they see Blaze, when see some of you guys with your name badge says realtor on it, right? Right? Hey, they're gonna know you're in real estate. They may ask you, hey, how's the real estate market? Okay. So again, are we secret agents? We can't be secret agents. We gotta let people know we're in real estate. Okay, guys? Okay. So be out there, let people know you're in real estate. And then here's the key. Once you made that contact, now you gotta build on that. So you meet someone at Starbucks today. You probably won't get their phone number, right? So go there once a week, maybe, right? Maybe post yourself at the Starbucks, right? And make that Starbucks your mobile office. Okay, Safeway. You meet the same cashier once or twice a month, maybe a week. Get to know them to where they see you. find out their name. Because some people, they flip their name tags backwards so you won't find out their name. We'll challenge them. Hey, by the way, my name is Greg. And what is yours? Why do you want to know? Right? They may ask you, why do you want to know my name? Well, you got to have an answer for that. Just like you have to have an answer. Hey, Pretty, how's the real estate market? Right? From Joe, how's the real estate market? You guys have to have an answer to these simple questions. Why do you want my number? Right? Why do you want my email? When they challenge you, you need to have an answer and just be truthful about it. Why do you want someone's phone number? What would you say? Someone said, why do you want my phone number? Not just because you ask, right? Why would someone, someone says, hey, why do you want my phone number? What would you guys say? Anyone?
Oh, depending on the
Well, there is some
situation.
information. Uh-huh.
Okay, Clementina first.
Okay,
Yeah.
you could take a selfie with them and then you could tell them you want to send it to them.
I learned that from my wife and other people, right? They're the photographer, right? And she sends that, right? The great job, Clementina.
Yeah.
Some of you guys are very good at that, right? You take pictures with people. That's an easy way to capture people's contact info, right? Now remember, once you have their contact info, right, their cell number, don't be blasting them about, hey, it's a good time to buy. It's a good time. You want to buy or sell, right? Remember, they gave it to you on a social, personal, right? Context. So keep the conversation there, right? So that's where the Ford concept comes in. Don't be pushing real estate on people. That's where the marketing comes in. Marketing will tell them you're in real estate and to call you, okay? But you need to, start that conversation. Personal first, social second, business third. Got it, everybody? Okay. It's not real estate all
That's
the
right.
time. That's why in Mike Ferry's script, hey, this is a business call, right? Yeah. Nuh-uh. This is a personal call, right? I just want to reach out. Blaze?
Well, simply information that I would like to send over to them if that's what we talked about.
Yeah,
But if
right.
it's on a personal level, then I
Mhm.
would just say, yeah, let's definitely grab some smoothies sometime.
Okay,
And then,
right.
yeah,
Guys,
they'll get
you
my, well, excuse me, I'll get their phone number that way.
okay, good. So again, it should be easy to get people's cell numbers if you have a value to give them, right? Okay. People's email, same thing. I'd love to send you this information, right? You know, knowing where people live, right? You should be able to get that. Hey, which area do you live in? Oh, which part of Fremont? Oh, is that off the one off Pasay Padre or which part of Ardenwood? How do I know it's Ardenwood? How do I know which part of Ardenwood? It's because you've been there, you know the different areas, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Like if I name a city in the Bay Area, you know, do you know where it is? Right? Like if I say, hey, where's El Sobrante? There's probably some people here that I've never been there. I know where it is. I've never been there. Well, guess what, guys? At some point, you need to be in every city in the Bay Area. At least drive by, right? Don't just stay off the freeway. Get off some of these exits, right? And just explore one of these days, right? Not this week. Maybe next year sometime, right? At least explore, right? So you can talk more intelligently to people as if you know real estate, right? Okay. Um, so again, this is where as agents, we need to know our market. Okay, we need to be experts within 5 to 10 miles or so of where we live or work. Right? That's just gonna be up to you. Okay. So, what is the challenge in getting people's phone numbers, addresses, or any their contact info? Are you guys okay? I mean, are you able to start conversations? You need to ask me now, or so that way we can help other people, not just yourself. So, challenges. Are we good? Blaze, anything
It's
to
just
share?
about increasing the volume. I don't really have any challenges now.
Okay.
It's just increasing the amount of conversations, especially when it comes to calling my COI.
All
And
right.
thanks
Okay.
to you, I've been really on top of
Mhm.
doing that at least 5 days a week.
Okay. Because here's the thing, right? We can call them anytime. We can be texting them anytime,
Yep.
right? It could be just simply, hey, it's been a while since we last spoke. let me know when you're available to grab coffee, or let's have lunch. Call me when you're available. Just sending that out, right? You may send out 100 and you may get one or two. But the reason why you send it out is because that's one contact to them. Most people will just ignore it. They might like it and then forget about it. Guess what? Next quarter or next month, when I do my ABCs, right, for the day of the month, I'm going to see, oh, Blaze didn't respond last month. I say, hey, Blaze, how's everything going? How's your summer going? Right now, there's a text stream. I'm not going to invite him back to lunch because he didn't respond last time. I'm just going to pick another topic to have a conversation. Or maybe it's just, hey, Blaze, have a great, 4th of July weekend. Or, Labor Day's coming, right? September, the first Monday of September, Labor Day. Maybe that's going to be your conversation. That's my conversation the next week or so. It's about what happened in the past summer. Kids are going back to school, and what are their plans for Labor Day weekend? In so many fashion, right? So think about, reaching out to people, copy and paste, just a text, right? And if you have a good CRM, you'll know whose birthday it is, right? You guys are seeing the girls, right? Our MITs front desk is sending these happy birthday, right? You ask them, how do they do that? That's from Follow Up Boss. Okay, so we have a database, so we know whose birthday it is, right? Because I may not be able to call Blaze today, or Larry's birthday was 2 weeks ago. Guess what? If he's on my schedule to be called this week, I'm gonna bring back, hey Larry, how was your birthday? What you do something interesting? What happened, right? It could be that, right? Okay. If I know he's married or we're kids, I may say, hey Larry, what do you and the kids do? What do you and your wife do, right? I mean, it's that. It's bringing what we know from previous conversations, right? Right. And if you're following them on Facebook, maybe you're seeing something in Facebook. Maybe you bring up that, hey, I noticed you guys went to, Florida this past summer. How was that? Right? Because remember, when we're calling people, it's not about real estate. It's personal, social, then business. Because the business is being marketed to them through my newsletters, through other postings. They're seeing I'm in real estate and I am involved in real estate. Right? Next thing is, remember, if they're not thinking about buying or selling, what value can you bring to them, to their conversations? Right? There are many things we can do, right? Like this weekend, right? What's been happening in the Bay Area? Anybody know any events? Anybody? Any big event happening in the Bay Area this weekend? Does anybody know anything? Where they live or what's happening? Anybody? I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, Larry, was the Garlic Festival, right? In Gilroy, right?
There was a street fair, Laurel Street Fair in Oakland.
In Oakland, right? So if you know people in that area, you could be mentioning that, right? They had the Land's End, concerts in San Francisco, right? Guess what? I reached out to everyone that I knew in San Francisco. Hey, you guys, are you guys planning to go to the Land's End, concerts, right? Even though I know they don't go, I bring that up, right? In San Mateo this weekend, it was the Aloha Festival, right? Guess what? If I know people that's into that, Hawaiian stuff, right? I call them, hey, you guys going to this event? Again, how do I know these things? I heard it somewhere and now, hey, I took advantage of that, right? So that's where we need to be involved in other things, just seeing what's happening in your local area and then reach out, okay? So again, if you know something is happening in the area, you may want to put that in your door knocking flyer, right? I always talk about, the farmer's market in your local area. Do you have the schedule and the locations for the different cities, right? Again, you don't need to have the whole Bay Area. It's just where you live or work. 5 to 10 miles. You need to know what's happening, right? In your zip code, if not in your city, and just spread that out. Okay, guys? So now, if you know what to do, you know what to say, now you just have to find the time or put in the effort to do it. We can't say we're too busy, right? It's because we didn't put importance in it. Just like with my weight challenge, right? It's the same thing, right? But here's why I tell my wife. there are skinnier people than me that are dying. Look at the funeral we just went to. It's the several funeral, right? So it's not. It's all So that's why I tell you, it's not the weight. Right? So, but I told you guys earlier, right? 25 pounds by the end of the year. Otherwise, I'm looking for a divorce lawyer, right? So it's
It's
that.
not the weight, but it's what we eat.
Yeah, I told you, it's not even what I eat. I need more
It is
exercise.
what you eat.
All right. So we have this argument, okay? Deborah's in that conversation, okay? Because she tells me, just like Deborah, I care for you, right? I want you to be healthy. Again, I appreciate all that. So I told my wife, right? I tell this Deborah, I appreciate. Thanks for the input, right?
As do
I
I,
know what to
Greg.
do, right?
As
It's
do
the,
I.
it's the same thing in real estate, guys. We know what to do, right? The only question, how committed are we into me losing that weight, right? To doing more business, right? It's that. And here's the thing. How motivated are we into achieving that goal, right? Because remember, if we're not excited about that goal, doing more deals in this case, right? Talking to more people, if we're not excited about that, then we need to create that excitement somehow, right? And this is where I've always shared with you guys, if I want something, like I want to go on a trip, that's exciting for me, right? Now I need to earn the money to do that trip, right? To have a better trip, right? What are some of those pillars of happiness? Do that exercise, guys. Okay. Most of you guys have not done it yet or have not revisited your pillars of happiness, your vision board, your goals. Because if you're excited to wake up every morning, then you will do what it takes, right? Some of you guys were at the Tom Ferry event, last week for 3 days. Great. Now, what are you going to do with that information? Did you take anything out of it? What was one thought, right? Yeah. So, and then now go do it. So, for instance, the Luxury Portfolio magazine is coming out again in October, right? It's now August. If you don't have 10 people on that system yet, the 10 magazines, you need to get a hold of Jennifer and get 10 people into your Luxury Portfolio magazine. Hopefully, you guys know about that because I'm going to test you next week. And I'll say, have you done this? Because there's going to be a checklist next week that you must be doing already. If not, then you need to jump on it, just like that newsletter. Okay. For you guys who are not in that newsletter system yet, you need to set up your free account minimum and then you need to start mailing. I would rather you mail to people. Remember, I want you guys to mail people you know or plan to meet. And at least 50 people, guys. Okay. And you need to get to 100 as soon as possible if you're not yet there. You need to invest in at least $100 a month in your business, minimum. If you want to get at least a listing every quarter, every month, you need to talk to enough people and people have to know about you more often. Okay. Deborah, do you have a thought, question, comment? Or anybody else? Okay.
Well, yeah, just to,
Yeah.
because I think it's important that we know that we have to add those 10 people every time because they don't stay, right? You have to add them every time. Once a year? Is it once a year?
The luxury portfolio?
Yes.
No, once you have 10, it stays there.
No,
You're
it doesn't. And
no.
I confirmed with Jennifer. No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
You
that's
So
have
you
to
have to
add
redo the 10 every time?
every time.
They must have changed that system. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. All right. So now it's just copy and paste, right? You have your top 10, right? So wait to review it. Because I always change my 10. So maybe that's why I never knew that it goes away. I always change 10. Every 6 months, I change them. I actually change it like once I receive mine, I change it again to the next 10. No one gets two in a row. So again, it's just another way for me to send them, right? Because I don't send it to the same 10 people every 6 months. So that's good to know. Thank you, Deborah. Right? You should be changing that list every 6 months, right? Everybody, okay. So that's one way. Okay. So thank you for that, Deborah. See, I learned something new today. Jennifer never told me that. I never tend to ask. I just change it every 6 months. Okay. So good job. See, sometimes we don't know if it's broken until somebody tells us it's broken, right? Okay. So great job. Anybody else have anything? Okay. I think it's Najwa that says, "What is the best way to find leads?" Right. To me, the best way to find leads is to find people. Where do you find people? Out there. Either people you know or people you don't know. Start with people you know. Right. You know enough people to start with. Right. Unless you just moved in from another country last week, you probably know more people than you thought. Right. I could tease Blanche there. Right. Her husband is prospecting for her already. Imagine
10 more funerals.
10 more funerals, right? Even if you didn't know them. No. Here's the thing, right? Ask your spouse for their friends and put them on that mailing system. You've probably been to their house. Why? Okay. So why wouldn't you ask your husband for their friends' contact info? Anybody? Why wouldn't you ask? Why would an agent do that? Does the spouse want you to succeed? Does the spouse want you to earn more money? Why not? Now, how do you ask? All right, that's the key. How do you ask? I said, "Hey, honey, who's that guy you're going out with? What's his number? Right? Are they married? Do they have kids? Right? Just ask. Remember the Ford. Use the Ford on your spouse, on your kids, right? Okay, and then show them the benefit of it, right? You want to go to college, right, son? Right? I need to find out who your friends are, so maybe I can help their parents buy and sell real estate. Again, if you're not comfortable saying that, then you need to figure out how to talk to more people. To me, that's the key, is how do I talk to more people, right? My neighbor just got a new hybrid. So I asked him, is that a hybrid or is that electric, right? I knew it's a hybrid because I saw hybrid, but I had to open up the conversation, right? Okay. So I just asked him, is it a hybrid or a full electric, right? No, how do you like it? Did you trade in your other car? Oh, what happened, right? You pick a topic of conversation and then you move on, right? Okay. You're at a gas station putting gas. Ask them about their car. Hey, what kind of gas mileage you get with that truck? You know, have you ever towed a vehicle with that truck? I mean, whatever it is, right? Start a conversation. Maybe it might bloom into something else. Is it okay if I reach out to you about, talk about your truck? I'm thinking of buying that F-150. Is it okay? Yeah, give me your number. Most people, if you start a conversation, they like you, then you're non-threatening, you seem approachable, they'll share their contact info with you. And if they don't, it's as if I didn't talk to them. At least it was practice. Does it make sense, everybody? Okay. And here's the thing: don't discount anyone. Just because they're working at Starbucks today or at Costco does not mean they cannot buy a house 5 years from now. Okay, I've gotten deals like that. Okay, where it was nice. I was just nice enough to reach out. Hey, hey, by the way, I meet them somewhere and we talk about that. Yeah, and they're not ready today. And one day, they call me out of the blue because I've been reaching out. Hey, happy Memorial Day weekend. Whatever the events are, just reaching out every quarter or so, right? Guys, if you don't know what to send out to people, reach out to me. We'll think of something. But here's the thing. Remember this 32 touch point system, everybody? Okay. Remember this one? Okay. The 32 touch point, guys, you need to do this. Okay. You need to have a way to remind yourself to make 4 personal calls every year, at least once a month email. To me, once a month mailer has to be the key. Right. This is the only reason why I get referrals, is primarily because of my mailers. And then when I see them at different events, it builds on it. Okay. So hopefully you have this. It's in the email, right? And then to me, past clients, people, old friends, pop buys. Almost every city, I know somebody, and I'll just say, hey, I'm going to be in San Leandro this week. Want to grab coffee, or hey, tell me what's going on. Anything interesting happening in San Leandro these days? Right? You talk about that. Social media is just, I just like different things. People, post something, I just like it. I don't really post it like, like happy birthday there. My happy birthdays is typically through text or call. Okay. Very, very rare do I post something on happy birthday. Unless I'm like the first one or two when I see it on Facebook. I'm like the 30th. I don't do that. Okay. Because I get lost. Okay, everybody? Okay. So that's where I take advantage of the text, a happy birthday text. Get a meme or something, right? Someone that sent you before, just copy and paste it, right? To me, the very key in 30 plus years is the direct mail. Okay. If I didn't do direct mail to all my clients and people I met, I probably wouldn't get as many referrals as I'm getting. Okay. Because eventually you're going to need to do that. The reason I'm still door knocking, doing open houses is so I want to build more, right? Because I want to do more business. That's the key, right? Now, I always say, I'm too busy to do that because I got these things. Well, if I want more deals, it's easy to find deals. Understanding, I meet someone today, they're not going to buy or sell today. It's going to take time, right? I don't know when, sometime in the future, hopefully I'm still alive, right? You let your marketing do what it needs to do, right? Okay. So questions on prospecting and lead follow-up. Okay. So question is, where do you get leads on trust? Right? You meet people before they die. Right? So in this case, right, with Blanche, let's make that example, right? She never met the parents, but her husband knows the kids, one of the kids, right? And that's how it happened. Right? Now, if Blanche was, let's say that's in her farm, right? And she knew the parents. Of course, Blanche wouldn't know that they passed away. She would be mailing, door knocking it, right? Leaving messages, right? Hopefully one of the kids would hear about that message. I've gotten a couple listings that way where I left messages on a dead person's answering machine and cell phone, but I've been mailing to them. One of the heirs, the kids called me. Hey, it looks like you've been talking to my parents. I don't know if they died or they passed away. Hey, we'd like to talk to you about liquidating their property. Right? It happens once in a while, right? Because I don't know when, if I keep calling somebody once a quarter, they're getting my monthly mailer because I met them, they were nice enough, right? How do I know they passed away? I don't, all right? Until one day I see a for sale sign or I somehow figure out they passed away. Because how do you know, right? You're leaving messages. Oh, if their number gets disconnected, right? There's gonna be signs, but I don't know. Most people that I keep in touch, rarely have they passed on so far, right? But there I have some, okay? Couple that we got listings on. The others, I just delete them. I don't know what happened to them, right? So, okay. So, questions on finding, if you want to focus on probates, right? If that's what you're focusing, there are some agents that do that, but you can find lawyers that do probates or living trusts, and you can create that relationship. But why would a lawyer trust you compared to another agent who they've known for a while? Well, you have to market to them. You have to refer some clients to them, build that relationship, right? You can get a list of people that have died. You know that, right? You can get a list of people who are liquidating their assets.
Sure, during the funerals.
Yeah, yeah. You just hang out there, right? Right. So you can. There are agents that focus on probate. You can get a list of people that are doing probates. But the biggest thing, if you want to do probates, is to contact lawyers. Is usually the best. Or in my case, the way I do it is I try to meet them before they die, and then I try to find. Oh, by the way, do you have kids in the area? Where do they live? Right. And then if I can get the kids' information, then I now add them to my database. And guess what? They become my future clients. Okay. And that happens often more often than less. Okay. Because if I can get Larry's, kids' information, and they may ask you, and this has happened, like, why do you want their information? Well, I'd like to share some information about the living trust or, how to avoid probate. Can I send that to them? Right. Again, if I've been talking to Larry because he's in my farm or I've been talking to him, he met me at an open house 2 years ago, there's a relationship there. There's a trust level. to where either he's going to trust me with their kids' information, or he'll say, well, just send it to me, Greg, and I'll send it to them. Then that means the full 100% trust is not there yet. So I have to keep, nurturing that relationship. Okay, because if people are not willing to share their, their database with you, it's because the trust is not there yet. Like, why would I share that? Or I don't want you to bombard them with real estate. There's something there, and we need to overcome that hurdle. Okay, so if you have those things, guys, reach out to me. I'll give you some ideas, and then you have to be brave enough to try it out. Because, like I said before, if you guys have people you don't want to call, give me the number and I'll call them. Okay, it's very easy. Okay, we just have to figure out, the context, and of course, what value can we bring in the conversation. Right? Okay, so what are let's overcome prospecting. Either do we know what to say, do we know where to find people, and most importantly, do we know how to follow up with them? Because our wealth is going to be in the follow up, right? Because we will meet a lot of people. It's what we do with them between now and when they're ready. Okay, it's a dating game, guys. We got to date them. Okay, so until they're ready, are they going to be calling us when they're ready? Okay, so let me wrap up with that. Let me stop the recording here.